Welcome to our Savvy series. I'm Catherine Magana here with Rachel Ivanovich. And today we're going to discuss biggest mistakes women make when retiring from a job. So retiring from a job can be a major life transition and event. And we just want to make sure we're sharing some tips with you to avoid or make sure that you have a successful transition into retirement. And so one of the mistakes that comes up is not having a financial plan or not having a plan. And so approaching a retirement without a plan, pretty much, you don't know, do I have enough? Will it last? I mean, those are a lot of things that our clients that come to us ask us. And so really having a plan in place really ensures that you'll have enough that will last. How is your money positioned? So really taking that time and having a financial and a retirement plan in place, we think is important.
And I think we've been doing a lot of those plans recently,
yes.
and we have a workshop specifically if you're thinking about retiring or do I have enough money, and really what are my core values, what's most important to me, what are my financial blind spots. So if you're interested, please call us. We'd love to meet you and talk with you through your goals. Our phone number here is 760-692-5700. We'd love to have you at one of the workshops. And it's really, like Catherine said, I mean, you really have to have that clear plan in place before.
And it gives you peace of mind. I mean, that was the
Yes.
one thing that we hear is, okay, I want to make sure, because I don't want to go in not knowing. And that would be the worst thing is, if you retire too early and you don't have enough, or if you are retiring and you do have enough, then what is the legacy you're leaving? Or there's also some tax planning and strategies you could look at.
Because I think those are, one of the biggest fears that people, say when they come to us is, do I have enough money? I'm afraid of running out of money. And so having that plan will give you peace of mind, like you said.
So another mistake is underestimating retirement expenses. So when you look at your kind of living expenses and you're doing some projections, I mean, part of the plan is what do you need to live on? And so we do look at your lifestyle expenses and budget. And some of the things that do need to be factored in to the retirement plan expenses are your healthcare expenses, travel expenses, because what we find is sometimes that kind of first phase of retirement, there might be a little more travel than you're used to, and so your spending might be a little different. And so really taking the time and reflecting and looking at, what do we project your expenses will be in the future. And then the other thing that it's hard if you retire early, or even, as we're all aging, what we find is that conversation on healthcare and long-term care, because
Exactly.
When you're young and feeling healthy, everything's great. But the reality is, in your plan you should have, looking at what it would cost if you need long-term care.
Well, and potentially you've had your health insurance through your employer. And the cost of health insurance may surprise you, especially if you're not yet Medicare age. Yeah. And so, sitting down with us, going through the worksheet of, let's look at a spending plan versus, okay, what do I have to cut out of the budget? Yeah. It can be fun. It can be fun.
It can. Oh, we love it. But
yeah.
But it is interesting because usually for the women that work with us, they're like, I actually haven't taken the time to actually look at this, and all ages. I mean, it's like, oh, wait a minute.
And in the workshop, we actually talk about the kind of the three buckets of, what might be a lifestyle expense for one person is a luxury expense for the other, and vice versa. Yeah. So it's really an individual process.
And so another mistake is claiming Social Security too early.
Yes, that can be a pitfall because you may or may not know if you are still working and you start taking Social Security benefits. So you're basically under full retirement age. If you're under full retirement age for the full year, you get $1 deducted from your benefits for every $2 that you earn from your work, up to the annual limit, which for 2024, that limit was $22,320. And then in the year that you actually reach full retirement age, $1 gets deducted from your benefits for every $3 that you earn above a different limit. So do I am I full retirement age yet? Am I under? Am I working? Am I not working? So in 2024, if you're in the year where you're reaching full retirement age, and depending on when you're born, that's a different age. Mm-hmm. So, and it's pretty simple to go online and pull a statement that will show your wages. It's kind of fun to see what did I earn since 1980 or whatever.
Well, it's funny. I was speaking with a woman yesterday, and she was saying we don't get those statements in the mail anymore. Like, you remember we used to get them on the mail? I said, no, it's online. I sent her the link so she can go online.
It's really only a 5-minute
easy.
process.
Yeah,
If you have an ID.me account, which these days it's good to have that so you can apply for all sorts of things online, but you can pull that statement within about 5 minutes. So in 2024, if you're in the year that you reach full retirement age, the limit on your earnings is $59,520. So your earnings are only counted up into the month before you reach full retirement age, and not really your earnings for the entire year. So something to keep in mind if you're thinking about retiring early, and should I take Social Security or should I not?
So another mistake is not accounting for inflation. So that's definitely something you want to consider. Each year, inflation changes a little bit. So a couple years ago, we had high inflation. Prior to that, we had low inflation, but you should use a historical inflation number. As of October of 2024, inflation is at about 2.6%. And so that's something that really needs to be factored in. So when we do look at financial planning and projections, we look at kind of current dollars and then we inflate it for future value. So if you're not accounting for inflation, obviously the purchasing power changes over time. So you want to make sure that you are factoring that in.
And that will combat that fear of running out of money.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things that we also see, the next mistake, is ignoring tax implications, which for a lot of years, potentially you're filing your return and, status quo, you bring in your W-2s, you bring in 1099s, you file the taxes. But then when you retire, they can really shift, especially in the first year when you're going from, being a wage earner and or a business owner to, okay, now I'm retired. What does that look like for my taxes? And oftentimes people won't account for, okay, how much did I accumulate in my 401k? How much did I accumulate in my IRAs and my other retirement assets? And then how much are my withdrawals going, what is that annual amount going to look like? Mm-hmm. So making sure you're planning for that and knowing, what tax bracket am I actually going to land in? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people think, when I retire, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. Well, maybe not. So making sure that you're planning ahead for that is really, really key.
And then that also ties into, down the line you take required minimum distributions, which those years have changed. It's now 73, and then it's going to go up to age 75. And so, but then if you're...
Unless they change it again.
Yes, I know. But if you're retiring, 62, 65, 67, then you don't have to take required minimum distributions yet. But then
you could.
And then once again, are you using investable, taxable money, or do you have Social Security? How are you getting your expenses covered? But then there comes the idea, okay, well, or do you need some of your retirement assets? And then once again, those assets, if they're not Roth, if they're IRA, they could be taxable income. So, and then that also ties into even the Medicare.
Where do I pull the money first?
Yeah, so that's kind of the strategy of kind of looking at the investing in the money and where to pull from and what's the tax implications. So another mistake is over investing in low risk assets. And so basically what we find occasionally is, being too conservative. So, it doesn't happen all the time, but that is kind of by nature. Sometimes we're like, oh, I want it, I don't want to lose anything. I want it protected.
Our last client who just came in here, he was saying he was fine with a 70-30 allocation. So 70% stocks and 30% bonds. And he was like, but now I'm retired.
Yeah.
So
what do I do?
I feel like I need to protect my money.
I know. So it's interesting as you have that mindset as you're shifting into retirement. And then once again, what are your needs? How is your money working for you? Are you generating
inflation
income?
ties back to the inflation. We need the money needs to grow.
Yeah. And so when you look at the kind of history of stocks and bonds and inflation from 2007 through September 30th of 2024, the S&P 500 or stocks annualized approximately 10.3% versus the 10-year Treasury did about 2.9%. And cash about 1.2%, and inflation in that time period about 2.5%. So once again, those kind of growth investments, outperform, but along the way there's risk and market volatility and but there's also potential more gain and appreciation. So that's why it's important, looking at what's your current allocation, how is your money invested, and obviously, not being too conservative, but also you may not want to be too aggressive, but just finding what's best for your overall plan and your risk tolerance.
So historically, say that again about the stocks. I think this is really important when we come to the next mistake.
Yes. So then historically for stocks, this is from September 2007 through September 30th of 2004. We have the S&P 500.
2024?
2024. So 24. September 30th of 2024 did about 10.3%.
Okay, perfect. So paying off your home too early.
Okay.
So oftentimes people, and for instance, one of the last clients we just talked with, he came in and said, yeah, I've been throwing extra money at my house to pay it off, but his interest rate's only 3.25. Yeah. And so if you look at, over the past 25 years, so historically, if you put your money to work and you're making hopefully more than 3%, paying off that home early doesn't make sense necessarily. And so all of a sudden you've got all your money tied up in your home and it's not liquid.
I think what we find is we have this conversation
a lot. Yes.
It's the behavioral side of knowing my house is paid off and that sense of security. And that's different than the economic, the financial aspect of it. So on the numbers, it makes sense on paper, and yes, you can make more money on your money potentially, but you can't take away that sense of I have my house paid off. But what we also see on the other side of it is if you have your house paid off and you either, if you need assets from your house, you either have to do reverse mortgage or find a HELOC or find some way of getting money pulled out or selling or downsizing, which there could be tax consequences.
Because we have had a couple of clients who have come to us over the past about year who all of their money is tied up in their house. So they have a house that's worth $900,000 and it's paid off, but they don't have any investable assets. Yeah. So it's where's the income coming from?
So it's a balance, and then there's a huge balance financially,
there.
If you have a low rate, technically you want your money working for you, and that's the economic sense. But it's again.
But the emotional side does play in.
Yes,
so it's good to work with us so we can talk through that, and we do a core values exercise. What's most important to you, and. So just everybody's different.
Exactly. Okay, and then lastly, not maximizing employer benefits. So failing to take advantage of your 401k matching or healthcare benefits. And so in addition to that, as you're looking at those employer benefits, you definitely, if they're matching, you definitely want to put money towards that. But usually most of our clients are maxing out their contribution limits and then also getting the match. And one thing we want to be aware of is making sure each year it seems like it goes up a little bit, so just staying on top of that and making adjustments.
And this is a great time of year to be really looking at that and thinking about that. If you are still employed and you have an employer who offers great benefits, but looking at, do I have a flexible spending account that I could be utilizing? And if I haven't used that money in that account, make sure you use it up for the end of the year. That's not a retirement mistake, but this is the time of year where you're looking at those accounts and making sure that you have taken full advantage of whatever your employer has to offer.
So we covered a lot today. If you are retired or retiring or thinking about retirement, give us a call. We'd be happy to set up a strategy session with you, either a phone call or in person. You can reach us at 760-692-5700, or you can join us. We do have live workshops as well as webinars, so we have a lot of resources. So thank you for getting savvy about your finances with us, and as always, remember to savvy up. Please stay tuned for important regulatory disclosures.
Savvy Women Wealth Management is an SEC registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry and how we may be able to assist. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Tax considerations presented may not be appropriate for every individual circumstance. A tax professional should be consulted before making any decisions about your tax liability.